Am I recording? Yes. Okay. Hello everyone again. Please ignore Pearl for a second. Something is going on with construction with my neighbors, and if I'm not holding her, she's barking, and I can't exactly record like that. So, I'm going to be looking at my notes for a minute. I'm talking about Morgan and Sunday's videos, which I thought were just so great. Both of them did a really, really excellent job incorporating the PowerPoint slides with Screencast-O-Matic. I really wanted to do that, but my iPad didn't allow it. But one thing that I realized, personally reflecting, that would have made mine much better would have been having the quotes and the images and the organization with the PowerPoint, the way that both Morgan and Sunday have theirs. That was one of the very first things that I noticed, because not only did they speak very clearly, have very clear, focused ideas, but I was able to hear it and read it. And even though like some of them had a lot of text, I still think that was really good, because I could pause it, or I could even save it and print it out, possibly, if it came down to that. But Morgan mentioned this in her reflection response video to myself, and in hers. She uses the words disability counter narrative, and I'm really struck by that, because in thinking about Curwood's article with reframing and reconstructing something that we already have in existence, the normal, I like thinking about a counter narrative in general, but I specifically like how Wonder and Mockingbird are specifically disability counter narratives. So they have a purpose. Like, they're not just telling a story, but they're telling a very specific kind of story with specific kinds of characters and protagonists that not everyone can relate to, but otherwise we wouldn't consider them abnormal. Since they're off the spectrum of normal, it's important to see their stories. And when Morgan says counter narrative, she also uses words like expanding and resisting and offering. And I just started thinking about how these counter narratives are very active. They're texts that serve a purpose, and they're active texts. So we as readers, when we read them, are kind of forced to think about what's happening. We consider that this is one single representation of Asperger's, or one single example of what it is that Augie goes through, and instead of it being just the one for all dominant example, it's just one small example on a spectrum of differences. But the actual genre of a disability counter narrative has a job, and August and Caitlin are able to have a role in that, in showing us a little glimpse into what we otherwise might not have had access to. And then Morgan mentioned something, like, she said so many great things, full of information. Something else that struck me was Devin helping Caitlin fit in. Even long after he's passed away, Caitlin's still thinking about him, and his whole goal was to help her fit in so that she didn't stick out. He was trying to normalize her, as Morgan says, and in some ways she follows along with that. She thinks about how when she's moaning in the playground or wherever, that, no, Devin would have said, don't do that, focus on something else, or whatever he would have said. But other times, though, like I mentioned in my vlog, she follows her own standard and her own system of codes so that she copes and adapts, not necessarily fits in. For her, she's just trying to adjust and interact with the normal people around her, not necessarily try to be one of them. She just wants to literally understand them, as Asperger's makes her very literal. And with Sundays, she looks at Wonder and like the redefining and the inclusion stories. So the same way that disability counter narratives seek to have a purpose goal in what they can do, part of that goal is to include them in, classics in a broader genre of text, so that instead of us having to read it for a module, a kid somewhere might pick it up and read it because they like the story, and then it helps them understand something that they might have shied away from. But she also had really great organized quotes, and I thought it was interesting that she read the Curwood article after reading Wonder. And I can't help but wonder how that would have affected her own personal reader response after the fact, because I read the Curwood piece first. I love theory. I love applying it to what I'm reading and being able to mark those examples. But trying to think of reading a text, taking my own ideas and my own response away from it, and then reading an article on theory that helps add more critical analysis to my own, I think that's just really cool. And I love that she said it helped her understand it more. And I love that she talks about the different letters and correspondence. And my favorite thing about Wonder in general is how the multiple perspectives add to the effect of that counter narrative, because in a sense it's almost like a bunch of narratives in one, because you're getting a bunch of perspectives. So you're not only seeing August's experience having deformities, physical issues, because he's not disabled mentally. Cognitively, he's as normal as anyone else, maybe even advanced since he was homeschooled and read a lot. But physically, he is abnormal and sticks out among the crowd. So we get his perspective, and he even says, I'm not going to tell you what I look like. You'd have a hard time picturing it. It'll be much worse than you're actually thinking. But Via doesn't shy away from it. She's immediately going into it. So you have so many different perspectives. And I think you get a sense of that in the letters when they're trying to argue what Augie is and isn't for getting into the school. And so in thinking about correspondence and the perspectives and in Wonder, and then the perspective you get in Mockingbird with Caitlin and her limited ability to see like her dad's depression around her, and why her brother was wanting to like normalize her to help. I think it's fascinating to think that there could be so many interpretations of this text, and to go along with how there are so many perspectives and so many jobs, I think these two texts pack a whole lot of punch. And Morgan and Sunday were definitely all over that with some really great quotes and some really great ideas that definitely left me thinking some more about the text. So, thank you.